Thank you, Prabhu. Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivaradari
Jaya Gopi Jana
Jaya Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Kishore Kishore Jaya Kishore Kishore Jaya Kishore Kishore Jaya Kishore Kishore Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jai Vishnu Pad Brahmam Shavirajacharya Sutra Sati Savangre Sesi Bhaktirante Swam Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Prantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Guru Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Devi Shesha Sunjavari Mudgastarya Shantarine Om Jnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Shakshuramitam Gena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Good morning everybody. Thank you for coming to this class. I feel so blessed to see Kishore Kishori smiling so much and Srila Prabhupada smiling so much. It's so wonderful to be in the middle. Hopefully to get some mercy. It seems that the deities are so happy about the worship you're all doing every day and taking care of them so nicely. And also, Gornitai, you have such wonderful Gornitais. I always like them so much. So we're reading the morning from Canto 10, Chapter 5, verse 30. We have no purport for a number, no real purport for a number of slokas, so I will read a little more. And the chapter is entitled, Krishna Establishes Dwaraka. Can you all see the sloka? Chagraha viratam ramo Jarasandam Mahabalam Hatanika Vashishtashum Hatanika Vashishtashum Simha Simham Ivauchasha Jagraha Viratam Ramo Jarasandam Mahabalam Hatanika Vakrashtishtasum Simham Ivochasa Jagraha Viratam Ramo Jarasandam Mahabalam Hatanika Vashishtasum Simham Ivauchasa Jagraha Viratam Ramo Jarasandam Mahabalam Hatanika Vashishtasum Simham Siham Ivo Vacha Graha Viratam Ramo Jarasandam Mahabalam Hatanika Vashishtasum Simha Simham Ivauchasa Jagraha Viratam Ramo Jarasandam Mahabalam Hatanika Vashishtasum Simha Simha Vivojasa Jagraha Viratam Ramo Jarasandam Mahabalam Hatanika Vashishtasum Simha Simham Ivo Vacha. Ladies. Jagraha Viratam Ramo Jarasandam Mahabalam Hatanika Vashishtasum Simham Hisam Virovacha Jagraha Viratam Ramo Jarasandam Mahabalam Hatanika Vashishtasum Simha Simham Ivochasa. Word by word translation. Jagraha, he seized Viratam, who was betrothed of his chariot. Ramaha, Lord Balaram. Jarasandam, Jarasanda. Maha, very. Balam, strong. Hata, killed. Anika, whose army. Avashishta, remaining. Asum, whose breath. Simha, a lion. Simham, another lion. Iva, as. Ochasa, forcibly. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jarasandha, with his chariot lost and all his soldiers dead, was left with only his breath. At that point, Lord Balaram forcibly seized the powerful warrior, just as one lion takes hold of another. We have no purport, we continue. Padyamananam hataratim pashai varuna manushai varayam asha govindas tena karya chikirsaya. Translation. With the divine news of Varuna and other mortal ropes, Balaram began tying up Jarasandha, who had killed so many fools. But Lord Govinda still had a purpose to fulfill through Jarasandha, and thus he asked Balaram to stop. There is a small purport. The word Hataratim means who has killed his enemies, or through whom his enemies would be killed. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti has provided this thoughtful note. I will continue reading quite a number of verses until we have a longer purport. Samukta lokanatabhyam vridito vira samataha tapase krita sankalpo varita pati rachabihi vakhyai pavritarta padair nayanai parikritair api svakarma banda prapto yam yadubiste paravabaha. Jarasandha, whom fighters had highly honored, was ashamed after being released by the two lords of the universe, and thus he decided to undergo penances. On the road, however, several kings convinced him with both spiritual wisdom and mundane arguments that he should give up his idea of self-abnegation. Abnegation, the act of renouncing. They told him, your defeat by the Yadus was simply the unavoidable reaction of your past karma. So my understanding is they encouraged him to continue, and not to actually go for penance and go deeply into himself, and said, yeah, it's just karma, just continue. Now karma is over. You can continue. Verse 34. Hateshu sarvani keshu nippo bahardratastata upekshito bhagavata magadan durmana yayo. All of his armies having been killed, and himself neglected by the personality of Godhead, Chincarasanda, son of Pradarata, then sadly returned to the kingdom of the Magadas. Verse 35 and 36. Mukunda piyakshata balo nishtirnari balarnavaha vikiryamana kushumais tridasais anumoditaha Maturai rupa sangamya vichvarair mudita matbihi upagi yamana vichaya sutta magada vandibihi. Lord Mukunda had crossed the ocean of his enemy's armies with his own military force completely intact. He received congratulations from the denizens of heaven, who showered him with flowers. The people of Mathura, relieved of their feverish anxiety and filled with joy, came out to meet him as professional bards, heralds, and panegyrists sang in praise of his victory. Verse 37-38. Shankha dudumbayo nedur, beri turyani anekashaha, vina veno mridangani, puram pravishyati Prabhu. Shikta margam rishtakjanam, prata kabir akshalankritam, nirgushtam brahmagushena, kautu kabada toranam. As the Lord entered his city, conch shells and kettle drums sounded, and many drums, horns, venas, flutes, and mridangas played in concert. The boulevards were sprinkled with water. There were banners everywhere, and the gateways were decorated for the celebration. Excuse me. The citizens were elated, and the city resounded with the chanting of Vedic hymns. Verse 39. Nichitya mano naribihir malya dadi akshatankurai nirikshamana san snenam priti ukalita lochanai. As the women of the city affectionately looked at the Lord, their eyes wide open with love, the scattered flower garlands, yogurt, parched rice, and newly grown sprouts upon him. It's very special to see that they even throw yogurt onto the Lord, not just flowers and sprouts and rice, so even yogurt. There is a small purport. All this is taking place as Lord Krishna enters the city of Mathura. Verse number 40. Ayodanagatam vitam anantam virabhushanam yadu rachaya tat sarvam aritam pradishat prabhu. Lord Krishna then presented to the Yadu king all the wealth that had fallen on the battlefield, namely the countless ornaments of the dead warriors. Purport. Srila Vaishnava Chakravarti adds that jeweled ornaments had also been collected from the horses and other animals. What might be added here for the sake of the squamish means the people who are disgusted, is that Jarasandha came to Mathura with a clear intention of slaughtering every last man in the city, including Krishna and Balaram. So Srila Prabhupada is saying, he came to kill everybody, so it was correct to take the ornaments from the dead horses and from the dead soldiers. It is out of the causeless mercy of the Lord that he gives the conditioned souls a taste of their own medicine, and thus helps them become more sensitive to the laws of nature and the existence of a supreme Godhead. I repeat, it is out of the causeless mercy of the Lord that he gives the conditioned souls a taste of their own medicine, and thus helps them become more sensitive to the laws of nature and the existence of the Supreme Godhead. Ultimately, Krishna awarded Jarasandha and others killed on the battlefield spiritual liberation. The Lord is strict, but is not malicious. In fact, he's an ocean of mercy. In fact, he's an ocean of mercy. Om Jnanati Mirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Shakshurunamitam Gena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Bharitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm reading the last verse again. Lord Krishna then presented to the Yadu king all the wealth that had fallen on the battlefield, namely the countless ornaments of the dead warriors. So we're here in the middle of the Leela Krishna actually had with King Jarasandha. King Jarasandha was a very strong king. And he tried to subdue everybody. We hear later on in this chapter that he had 20,000 kings imprisoned because he was going out there and actually subduing all these kings, And at the same time, he had some, appreciation for King Kamsa. He felt that Kamsa was a strong king, and he looked up to him. So actually, to avoid any war between the two of them, he offered King Kamsa his two daughters in marriage. And they had been married to him and lived in Mathura. But when Krishna actually killed King Kamsa, of course, they had been very distraught. And both daughters went back to their father. And when King Jarasandha heard that, he, of course, was furious, He was so angry. And he actually made the vow that he would kill all the Yadavas, So therefore, he assembled this unbelievable army of soldiers. And he started to actually go towards Mathura. And of course, the Lord, first of all, knowing everything, and he was ready to fight King Jarasandha. So it said that the two chariots came down from the spiritual world with all the different, what is the right word to say, clubs and, of course, arrows and bows and all this kind of thing. So, and he asked Balaram actually to sit into the chariot and go against the war. And single-handedly, Krishna and Balaram killed the whole army, except Jarasandha. It said here only his breast was left, nothing was left, And it was such a defeat for Jarasandha, if you can imagine. He defeated so many other kings, and now he was defeated by Krishna and Lord Balaram so incredibly, So he was so ashamed, how could this happen to him, And as we heard, he wanted to go in penance, but then somebody came along and told him, actually it's just your karma. Now your karma is over. Just, go back to your kingdom and fulfill your dharma, your duty as a king, And we heard in these slokas that Balaram wanted actually to bind actually with ropes King Jarasandha and most probably put him into a jail. But Krishna said, no, no, let him go, because he had a complete other goal. And we heard yesterday, Nuttama Prabhu actually remember or has recounted the sloka. Krishna comes to this world to protect the devotees, but you annihilate the miscreants, And it was Krishna's plan that he knew, and he would, of course, most probably in his heart, help him to understand that he has to run so many times more against Mathura, so that Krishna could actually annihilate all these miscreants. So he came another 17 times, and every time he was actually defeated. So that's the context of this thing. But what I would like to focus here is that on the purport, where Srila Prabhupada speaks about Krishna's mercy. Yeah? By disciples, okay. Thank you for that. So the devotees, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they really focus on the causeless mercy of the Lord. So this one sentence, it is out of the causeless mercy of the Lord that he gives the conditioned souls a taste of their own medicine. So the own medicine is, of course, the pride, the prowess that I am the one, I can defeat everybody, in this case of Jarasandha, and I can defeat whoever I want to defeat, because I made a relationship with Kamsa, who is the other strong one here, but the rest I can subdue them, And it says, the taste of their own medicine, their own medicine, to have this pride, this prowess, and thinking that I'm the big one. So out of causeless mercy, Krishna gives Jarasandha this medicine, And we can reflect on ourselves, When we had been a little off the normal track of devotional service and the normal track of maybe our goal in life, that Krishna has given us a little knock on our head and reminded us that it's not the right way to go, In my case, it happens, most probably not in your case, but from time to time, it's good to have a little reminder, maybe just a misstep, Said, what's happening here? Why did I make this misstep? Or somebody say something to me or whatever and said, where I am, where is my consciousness? Where is my mind going? How do I have to correct myself, And at the end, of course, he has given them liberation. We know that also the soldiers on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, they had not been sent to hell or to hellish planet. No, they had been awarded a complete other reward. And here it says, Jarasandha and the others killed have been rewarded liberation, You may all know already the story that later on, a number of chapters later on, actually Jarasandha is killed, because when King Yudhishthira wanted to make a big sacrifice, it had to be that all the kings had to be subdued and actually give him some of their wealth so that he could make this unbelievable sacrifice. We cannot even imagine how it was nowadays, So much ghee and so much different things offered to the Lord in the fire, going over days and days, and, having gifts for everybody who attended, giving gifts to the brahmanas in big quantities and so on, So then Jarasandha was still not subdued. So Krishna took it on him to actually subdue or actually kill, in this case, Jarasandha. So he went with Balaram and with Bhima, and they disguised themselves actually as brahmanas, But King Jarasandha could see, based on their muscles and the different imprints of their ornaments and whatever, they must be royals. But he accepted them, and then finally Krishna actually presented himself, who he is, and okay, finally the battle happened. But King Jarasandha said, I don't fight against Krishna, because he was running away from the battlefield, how would I ever fight with somebody like him, And he said, and Balaram, he's not at my level, he is too weak, he's not on my level. But Bhima, okay, he's on my level. So they actually fought for 16 days, if I'm correct, and they have been really equals, you know. They have been shattering their clubs, you know, and finally they went with their fists and hands towards each other. So finally, Krishna has given the hint to Bhima that he took a little branch from a tree and just took it apart, so that Bhima understood that if he rips actually the body of Jarasandha apart, he will be actually killed, you know. And that's what happened when the king wanted actually to have a son, the father of Jarasandha. He had two queens, and both of them have given birth, but only half of the body of a baby, you know, which we cannot imagine. And it says even that it looks so horrible that the king said, you know, throw it to the forest, you know, I don't want to see that. But this demon Jara came and put the two bodies together, and the baby started to cry and shout, you know. She was even shattered herself, you know. So then she brought the baby to the king, and the king, of course, was very happy. But that was the demon Jarasandha actually later on, you know. So here we see the ocean of mercy of the Lord. But I've recently given a class in New Vrindavan on another sloka, which shows the mercy of the Lord even much more deeper, you know. So it's about Putana, you know. It says there that, how can I take shelter, I'm paraphrasing, how can I take shelter of than the Lord who has given even to Putana the award to be his mother in the spiritual kingdom, you know. So we remember the Lila of Putana, you know. Kamsa, so afraid that actually the 8th child of Vasudeva and Devaki would kill him. He was then influenced, like not only the 8th child, maybe the first one and the second one, that he sent out these demons to actually look for Krishna and kill the baby. So Putana specifically was requested to go out there as this lady demon to actually kill the babies, you know. And how can we imagine that somebody goes around and just is looking for young-born babies and kill them, you know? So she was an incredible demon, you know? How could somebody do something like this? But then, when you heard about this baby Krishna, you know, she transformed herself into this wonderful lady, you know, so nicely dressed, flowers in the hair, decorated so nicely, that when she walked to Gokul, everybody was just astonished, you know. And they would have been thinking that, oh, somebody from the spiritual world or from the heavenly planet is come to see Krishna, you know. And she could go into the palace of Nanda Maharaj without anybody saying anything. Finally, she ended up in Krishna's room, you know. And even Rukmini and Mother Yashoda have been there, but they have seen how beautiful she was and whatever. They did not do anything. So Putana was actually taking the baby Krishna and out of his little bed. And Krishna, you know, had his eyes closed because he understood, I have to kill her, you know. I have to kill this demon. So she put Krishna on her breast, and she had smeared poison on her nipples, you know. And then when Krishna sucked not only the poison, he sucked the life out of her, you know. Yeah? And long story short, you know, when he sucked all the life of her, she had to expand in her natural form, you know. And it says that she was 12 miles long, you know. And when she fell down, all the trees for about 12 miles have been actually destroyed, you know. And there was this big, unbelievable body. And Krishna was still on her chest. So the gopis came and of course, took Krishna away. And Mother Yashoda came. And she was so, of course, affected by what just happened, how a demon could attack Krishna in her own house. She took cow urine and washed Krishna's body with cow urine, sprinkled the dust of the hoofs of the cows, and prayed the names of Lord Vishnu to protect him, whatever. Interesting enough, then the Rajbasis would come and cut the body of Putana, because somehow they had to get rid of this body in this holy place, of course, in Vrindavan, And it said they started a fire and put the body into the fire, but it was such a nice smell coming out of the fire because Krishna had touched Putana. So actually his unbelievable smell of his body actually was emanating from this fire, But the topic of mercy here is that Krishna did not see anything wrong or anything what Putana had done wrong and had in her plan. He just has seen that she had this little affection to actually give him her breast milk, And that's so unbelievable to see, that Krishna just sees only the little tiny service somebody does, and all the other aspects, of, in this case, of such a demon, had been so bad, with so unbelievable a goal to kill all the babies, He just not even sees that. He just has seen only this little service, and therefore he actually elected her as one of his mothers in the spiritual world, How unbelievable is this, And it always reminds me of these 4 levels of seeing the good and the bad, So we can see the good and the bad in somebody, and we speak equally about both, The next level is we can see the good and the bad. We speak only about the good, The next level is we see only the good and naturally only speak about the good. And level number 4 is that we see the good which is not even there, So, of course, the pure devotees, the highly elevated Vaishnavas, they are on this level, that they see only the good in anybody or the good which is not even there. And in this case, Krishna, he sees only the good, nothing else, And there is also the opposite side, the good and the bad, but speaking more or less equally, but the good and the bad on the next level, speaking only about the bad. The next level is to see only the bad, and the last level is to see only the bad, to see the bad which is not even there, So it's our choice, in our day-to-day life, how we see other Vaishnavas, see other people, that we can see whatever good is in them, or we can go completely to the other side, And it's a big topic at least for my mind, to be controlled, Because naturally our mind is normally going to something which is not good, something. We can see in the other ones that we can elevate ourselves a little bit, he has this habit, and this habit here, I don't have this, so I'm much better. That's a typical actually activity of our mind. So it's very important that we can stop this thinking, and see the good in the other devotees, So here it says, at the end of the purport I was reading, that Krishna is an ocean of mercy, It's just the unbelievable mercy of the Lord, As we have seen for Jarasandha, he was giving him liberation, even he had so bad intentions. In the case of Putana, the same, She became even the mother of the Lord in the spiritual world, And of course, that's something we are all hankering for, that we may be the goal of the causeless mercy of the Lord, But as he said, causeless, we cannot actually do something for it, Krishna is just out of any cause awarding the mercy, And there are different cases, of course, in the Shastras and in the different stories we hear. One I'm reminded is the Brahmana who was so poor, and he wanted to actually serve the Lord, but he had nothing to offer. So what he would do is he would do all his offerings and worship in his mind, And you all know the story that when he was one day cooking the sweet rice, when he wanted to test with his finger if the rice is now, at the temperature he could serve it to the Lord, he burned his finger, And Krishna, in the spiritual world, have just smiled and he was asked, why are you smiling? So he actually brought the Brahmana right to him, Of course, the Brahmana have done worship, whatever, but it was causeless mercy at this point that he could just, out of the blue, go back to the spiritual world, So this is one of the incidents. The other incident is in Bhagavatam Rita, Gopakumar, Krishna was so hankering to have Gopakumar back to the spiritual world, so that Krishna actually came as his guru, actually to Vrindavan, and he brought Gopakumar to Vrindavan to meet him there, and actually he has given him his mantra, and then helped him through all this potency he had to go to the different planets and finally to Vaikuntha and so many places. And finally, get purified so much that he could actually go back to the spiritual world, So it's the causeless mercy of Krishna, And when Gopakumar arrived in the spiritual world, he said, I was hankering so long for you. I was waiting so long and thinking, when will you actually think about me, When will you be actually trying to come back to me, And he said, I had to come myself. I had to come myself as your guru, and actually bring you finally back to the spiritual world. So we can see also in this case, the causeless mercy of Krishna, So in our life, of course, we can try our best to do our devotional service, what all actually is included in our devotional service. Trying to do everything for Krishna we do, try to always remember him and never forget him, And I just remember this morning I have seen these different items about chanting, and number 10 is the causeless mercy, So I assume this is most probably from Romabad Maharaj. It says, at the end that we need the causeless mercy also in our chanting, so that Krishna helps us to focus on his name, to understand and realize that his name is himself. And in addition, of course, that we actually can actually finally, hopefully, see Krishna directly, through our chanting, so that we are so much purified and come to this level. So we try every day to do whatever we do to offer to Krishna, and as much as possible remember him. And hopefully, one day we will also be the object of the causeless mercy of the Lord, so that we can go back to Godhead. And maybe some of us, the more elevated ones, go to another place where maybe Srila Prabhupada is preaching, or Krishna has incarnated, or whatever, So thank you so much for your attention. Maybe you would like to share some other places of the Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita where Srila Prabhupada speaks about the causeless mercy, or we have examples of the causeless mercy of the Lord.
Thank you so much, Jai Krishna Prabhu. One question I have is, you mentioned sometimes Krishna, knocks us in the head to let us know, hey, this is not going right, you have to, and expose something that we're not doing, we may not paying attention, and we must pay attention to these things. And in general, Anuttama Prabhu was pointing out, as we were reading, at the last part of the purport, that the Lord is strict, but it's not malicious. It's, as you mentioned throughout your class, it's very kind and merciful. So he's showing us this. Now, in the case of Jarasandha, that just the psychology of someone who is extremely proud. So when you have this thickness of pride, that even when you get exposed like that and basically thoroughly humiliated, and everything that he was proud about it, of his strength, of his power, of his influence, got completely wiped. And they send in that position back to his place. And still, it didn't really make a dent in his pride. And we see even the 17 times, still he continued. So it really didn't, all those things that Krishna did in terms of exposing his actual, inferiority or weakness, it was not able to penetrate the pride of the person. So sometimes we have this situation, we may experience that ourselves, or we see it, that this conception that we may have of ourselves, even though Krishna is showing us signs that this is not, these have to be changed, these have to be addressed, still out of pride sometimes we may hold to that. So if you can have some insights of that, this how to deal, or how for ourselves and also to help others become aware of how thick and how powerful pride could be as an obstacle for our advancement in Krishna consciousness.
Thank you. In the case of King Jarasandha, we can see that, we don't really know how much Krishna actually influenced him to run 17 times so that he could get rid of all these soldiers, and actually relieve Mother Earth of all these different elements. That's one topic. The other topic is, of course, that we may not the first time get that we should actually maybe adapt, change ourselves, have another focus. We can see here in Jarasandha, as you say, he did not get it. He ran again and again and again and again. So I think that's also what we can experience ourselves, that sometimes at the first knock we understand and said, oh, I'm a little off here. And sometimes it takes much longer, And in this case, I only remember what Srila Prabhupada said to Bhakti Charan Maharaj, in Mayapur on the rooftop, He said to Bhakti Charan Maharaj, you had billions of life. He did not say millions. Srila Prabhupada said, you had billions of life. Just offer this one. Just offer one to Krishna, So that means for us, when we had billions of life, we really did not get it, We did not get it for so long. We had so many lives and so many experiences, and we could just not get it. That somehow we actually did activities which gives us some punya, so that in this life we come in contact with Krishna consciousness, Maybe many of you have been before, but Srila Prabhupada says in the purport somewhere in the third canto that even a fallen devotee will take birth in a family of devotees or in a rich, highly educated family, So even a fallen devotee, so that's also the mercy of Krishna, of course, Okay, the topic of pride is a difficult one, perception, my perception is prayers, you know. First of all, prayers to understand the full volume and the full extent of our pride, you know. That's the first step, you know. And the second step is then actually to be able to handle this, you know, and to understand that, you know, we are the tiny, tiny little living entity, you know, somewhere in these millions of universes, you know, with so many others, you know, and we think of ourselves how elevated and important we are, you know. I think that's, for me, the second aspect. I don't have another remedy to actually share with all of you, but maybe somebody else could actually chip in, you know. And I always remember, I don't want to remember the devotee, but when Srila Prabhupada said, you know, there is this spiritual and material world, you know, and there is this million of universes, and then there are so many countries, and then there is this one city, and in one city, yeah, you are actually the temple commander or whatever, you know, and more or less thinking, you think you are so important, and I think that's such a lesson for us, you know, that, you know, Trinada Pisunichena, you know, the way we should chant and the way we should actually do our service and walk our life, you know, that we understand that we are the tiny, tiny and trying to be important, you know. So, but maybe you have, or anybody has something more to share. Please.
Go ahead.
I had another question, so I don't know, is it in time? It's like 5 minutes. Krishna, as you say that Krishna posed himself as a Brahmana and then lied to Jarasandha, as you mentioned in this sloka. So the argument comes, like, for the common person who's really trying to argue it, that if you are part and parcel of God, so you're just a small part, he's a big. When he's lying and then you are lying, what is the difference? That's number one. Number two, when you lie, then you feel that you are sinful. What is the reactions for the Supreme when he is lying? So how you can argue with the common person? Hare Krishna.
You know, Krishna lies and we are lying.
What I say that we are part and parcel of God. So we are just a small fragment part, right? So we are a small part, he is a big. We lie. What is the difference between our lies and Krishna lies to Jagannath? That's number one. And the second thing, if we feel that if we lie, then we think it is sinful, then what is the question for Krishna?
Yeah, Krishna does everything just for the good, you know. You know, Krishna is not malicious, as we heard in the purport, you know. Krishna is have only the best intentions for all living beings, even the demons, as we understand here, you know. So if Krishna does anything which from our perspective of this world seems to be off, it's only for the good of the people, you know. And of course, he's full of the six opulences, you know. He's the Supreme. He can actually, he can really do whatever he wants to do, you know. And this law of material nature, what is mentioned in the purport, that, you know, he wants to actually make us aware of our own medicine and the law of nature, and that the understanding that there is a Supreme, that's not relevant for him. Because, first of all, he's not under the law of nature. Second, he's the Supreme himself, you know. So for him, it's only in the best for the best. And we know that he's equal to everybody. He's a little less equal, or no, more equal to the devotees, you know, but nevertheless, he's equal to everybody. So even if he lies, it's not for the bad of anybody. Even if he's lying in a certain case, it's also for the benefit of the ones who the lie may go against, you know. So it's the difference. The difference for us is when we lie, we want to cover something up. We want to either show something we are not, or we want to cover something up we have done, which we are just so ashamed to make public, to make known, you know. So our intent is a completely different one, you know. So our intent is to, again, going back to the topic of pride and our own self-worth, we think I can just not agree, or I can just not disclose that I have done this wrong, or I may try to bluster myself up by lying about something else, you know. So I see this as the two differences, you know. But important is the Lord is not malicious, you know. The Lord has only He sees only the good. He does only the good. He does only good for everybody, whatever the status is of ourselves, you know. And at the end of the day, that gives us so much faith, you know, that Krishna is actually the reservoir of mercy, you know, and he has only the best in his mind. At the same time, he's hankering so much to get us back, you know. I was speaking last night, you know, I was actually grown up and I was a Roman Catholic, you know, and we had actually religious lessons during our normal school, you know. It was clear twice a week the priest would come, you know, but he was teaching us only about fear. Fear was the main motivation, you know. If you do this, you are going to hell. If you don't do this, you go to hell. And hell, you will be eternity, you know. And our Krishna is so nice, means the supreme, to understand, based on our Shastras, you know, how is only love is the goal, you know. And how is he's so merciful, and how sees the little tiny service Putana has done, you know, and awarded her the biggest thing to be the mother. So that gives at least me so much faith, you know, that I want to be with this Lord. I want to serve this Lord. I want to one day be with this Lord, you know, because he is so incredible. He is, of course, we cannot, you know, have a proper picture, a proper understanding about the Supreme, but at least on my level, this gives me a little more details about the Lord, you know. And also that's the wonderful thing about Krishna consciousness. Nobody knows in any other faith so much about the Lord like we know, you know. You know, all his leelas, he plays full games, he's stealing butter, he plays with the gopis, how in this case, you know, with Charasanda, you know, and later on Muchukunda and all these different leelas, you know. It gives us so much joy that we are actually, through Srila Prabhupada, we have this knowledge about the Lord, you know, about how the Lord he is, you know, how he's always young, and he's so wonderful that he attracts everybody and so on, you know. And I always speak about the spiritual world, that there is no electricity in the spiritual world. It's only the light emanating from his body, you know. And it's such a wonderful light that our sense of sight is completely overwhelmed, you know. And then, as we see in the case of Putana, you know, her body was smelling so nicely. The Lord has this aroma, you know, which the whole spiritual world, you can just smell this wonderful aroma, you know, this wonderful smell, you know. And then his flute, his sound, you know. So our senses are completely overwhelmed. And this gives us this unbelievable joy and happiness, you know, in addition that we just want to serve him, you know. So I think that's the beauty of Krishna consciousness in so many ways, you know, knowing about the Lord, knowing about how he acts, knowing how he has his causeless mercy. So, please.
Yeah, dude. Before I was, when you were speaking of, Subal Prabhu was speaking about pride, and thank you for being here, thank you for the class. I just wanted to share that about finding out, like when we want to find out our faults, that there was one thing, for one, if we're sincere and we ask the Lord to show us, and we're sincere, He will show us. And if one thing that really helped me, not to say that I have succeeded, but one thing that really helped was to know, or I've heard that you only see in others what you possess in yourself. Yeah. And every time I see something and I say, this goofy dude, I say, oh, that's right, I'm a goofy dude. All right, wait a minute. I keep switching it around, because even pure devotees act as mirrors for people. So sometimes you cannot see a pure devotee because he's really mirroring your consciousness. Yeah. So you don't see the pure devotee, you see yourself. Yeah. And that's their service a lot of times. They don't walk around showing their consciousness. They are way above the crowd, and they are helping other people by just mirroring.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So the topic was that what we see in others is actually the mirror of ourselves, you know. So we see any false pride, whatever it is, envy in others. It's actually showing what we are missing, you know. And the topic is then the sensitivity to understand where we are, you know. We made all the experience that, you know, in Krishna consciousness, after some time when we actually practice, that we feel, wow, you know, I have this and I have that and whatever, you know. As long as we are out there in the world, all this is covered up, you know, and we don't feel we have these bad actually habits or attachments, you know. But as more as we are cleansed, all this stuff is coming up. I said, wow, I'm really envy here, you know. How can this happen, you know? But that's, of course, the process that within our devotional service, that as more we cleanse ourselves through devotional service, these topics are coming up, and we have to face these topics really one-to-one, you know? So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Anutama Prabhu, last topic.
Yeah, just one comment on Sunil's point. I think you answered it nicely from the perspective of Krishna's transcendental position, and he has everything, will and intention. I think sometimes as devotees too, we tend to think, okay, because I'm doing this for Krishna, it's okay. You know, I'll bend the rules, I'll break the rules. But we all took vows of truthfulness. You know, when we say no illicit sex, no intoxication, no meeting, no gambling, those are the grossest manifestations of violating that I will be merciful, I will be clean, I will be truthful, I will be austere. So we actually took vows for those. And I think, you know, all of us been around for some time, we realize even with ourselves, and sometimes we see with others, somebody will justify something that's not true because it's for Krishna, but the karma is still there. You know, it's maybe you still get some credit because you did it for Krishna, but he still teaches, so the karma is still there. And I have to deal with so many things, myself and others, where they were really well motivated. I mean, the idea was this is completely for Krishna, because they broke the rules. Some rules, not necessarily the regulative principles, but they broke the rules of ethical behavior. And even though it was for Krishna, the reaction comes back. Some way, shape, or form. So it's just for all of us. And, you know, in the business world, it's like tough. I think you're in construction, yeah? That's probably the toughest industry in the world, to be honest. But, you know, we have to try to set an example. And among ourselves, we should really try to really see we have to practice.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's this a little neophyte approach that if I do something for Krishna, I don't have to respect any rule, you know. I don't have to do that. And it always reminds me what Malati Prabhu shared, you know, that when they had the temple in San Francisco, you know, so the truck would come, the little van, whatever, and distributing the butter and different milk products, you know. And when the guy would deliver to the business next time, she would take out the butter and bring it to the temple, you know. First of all, of course, they did not have much Lakshmi around, you know, and they could not opulently served the Lord. But when Srila Prabhupada from the window has seen that, he said, we have to stop that, because, as you say, to do something for Krishna is not allowing us to transgress our standard rules. The standard rules of the government, in most cases, there may be some extreme cases we have to, and the standard rules of moral behavior, So that's very important for us. And we still have a little bit this thing, we are a little protected, we can do this, but on the long term, that's of course, as you say, the karma is there, and it's really not helping. It's not helping the society, and it's not helping ourselves,
There's one other story, I think it was the same temple. I'm pretty sure San Francisco, somebody can correct me, where early days devotees were totally distraught. They had to pay the bills. They had to pay the landlord. He'd threatened them they're going to expel them. They didn't have any money. And they came out of the temple one morning and there was money blowing down the street. Yeah. Remember that story? It doesn't happen every time, but it happened that time. There was money. So there was they didn't, where did it come from? There's nobody. So they just picked up all the money and then they paid the rent. So that shows we don't need to take the butter because Krishna will provide.
Yeah, it was in San Francisco too, Malati and Shyamasundar and whatever, they collected all the bills and yeah. Ranturaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.